What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to talk about the winner of the Spanish Vault Tour, which might look a little bit familiar because it is the winner of the German Vault Tour. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We have another deck which has gone and won 2 Vault Tours. And as a quick side note as we get going, we all like ratings on our Keyforge decks. One of the most popular is the SAS rating. Well, this comes in at an 86 SAS rating. It's in the top 10% of decks. Here's the thing. Ratings are good. Ratings are fun. Ratings are a great starting point for seeing your deck. But this is not in the top 10% of decks. To be clear, I love SAS. I love what they do. I think their rating system is brilliant and I use it literally on a daily basis. Please, please, please do not interpret this as anything even remotely negative to SAS. I adore the work they do and I love them. What I'm saying is, do not just rely on rating systems, any rating systems, because to call this in the top 10% of decks is a massive, massive understatement. Now, the other thing is that the person who piloted this to victory, Jakob Dunker-Nussel, sorry for the pronunciation, has played with this deck so many times. Incidentally, is part of Team SAS. And familiarity with the deck is absolutely crucial. So why is this deck so gosh darn good? And let's start with the most ridiculous combo in the deck. Double Battle Fleet, Key Abduction. And as a man who has made absolutely no secret of his love for Mars, yeah, this makes me pretty gosh darn happy. Battle Fleet and Key Abduction is frankly a ridiculous, phenomenal, silly, over-the-top combo. But then when you add in a second Battle Fleet, I mean, at that stage, it's just getting a little bit silly now, isn't it? Key Abduction is a wonderful card that basically makes both players pick up all of their Mars creatures, and then you may forge a key at +9 current cost, reduced by 1 for each card in your hand. Now, you do get an amber bonus, but the goal here isn't really about amber. You can forge a key at 15 odd amber, but really the goal of this is to stash a whole bunch of cards in your hand and forge a key for no amber. Because if you can forge a key for no amber using Key Abduction, you can save your amber to forge a key at the beginning of your turn. And that's when this deck really jumps into hyperdrive. When you're forging a key with amber at the beginning of your turn, then dropping a Key Abduction to go and forge a key in the middle of your turn. And that's why we need a couple of Battle Fleet here. You see, Battle Fleet is a redonkulous card, gives you an amber bonus, you reveal any number of Mars cards from your hand. For each card revealed this way, draw 1 card. And then, of course, if you can play a second Battle Fleet in the same turn, then you're also getting extra cards for each card you showed and each card you drew from the first one. It gets kind of silly. And that's what makes this deck ridiculous. The combination of double Battle Fleet and Key Abduction. But please don't think that's the only good thing about this deck. To continue looking at Mars, we also have an EMP Blast, which gets rid of each Mars creature, robot creature, and artifact. Artifact control can be pretty gosh darned important, and the thing is that this deck just doesn't rely on artifacts. As a side note, there is a single spectral tunneler there, so you do have an artifact, but this deck doesn't rely on artifacts. But if you come across a really awkward artifact, let's say something like Heart of the Forest, well, now all of a sudden you can just get rid of it. You need an answer to awkward artifacts, and this is it. Now, we also have 2 copies of Martians Make Bad Allies. Reveal your hand, purge each revealed non-Mars creature, and gain 1 amber for each creature purged in this way. It's pretty extreme, but by the same token, pretty good for getting amber, so I'm cool with that. We then have Orbital Bombardment, which is good for some cheeky damage. Gives you an amber, reveal any number of Mars cards from your hand. For each card revealed this way, deal 2 damage to a creature. Clearly phenomenal after playing double Battle Fleet. Sample Collection puts an enemy creature into your archives for each key your opponent has forged. This is not a deck that really plays around in its archives very much. So you're kind of cool. It does have some archiving, but it doesn't rely on it that much. So in games where you're not archiving, you can just whack some creatures in your archive and then your opponent can't use them. That's kind of funny. But we've also got 2 copies of Squawker here. Either you ready a Mars creature or stun a non-Mars creature. So either you get extra uses of creatures or your opponent gets fewer. Either way, that's good. And speaking of extra uses, Ulig Megamouth, when it fights or reaps, you use a friendly non-Mars creature. It's nice for house cheating. And then 2 copies of Grabber Jammer. Your opponent's keys cost +1 amber. Indeed, if you got both of them out, your opponent's keys cost +2 amber. And I'm not going to pretend that this is going to stop your opponent forging all of their keys, but I am going to say that 1 or 2 amber could be the difference between them forging and them not. But let's face it, right? If we're looking for great amber control, we're looking at Shadows. And the weird thing is, right, this plays bait and switch, and bait and switch got that phenomenal nerf, whereby you can now only steal a maximum 2 amber, whereas you used to be able to steal loads. So even post bait and switch, this is very, very nice. But there is plenty of other amber control in here. We've got both Nerve Blast and Relentless Whispers. Those are the weirdly parallel cards, or opposite cards, however you want to phrase it. Nerve Blast deals an amber, and if you do, deal 2 damage to a creature. Relentless Whispers deals 2 damage to a creature, and if it destroys them, you steal an amber. Then we've got 2 copies of Routine Job. Not the most we've ever seen in a deck. There's plenty of decks with plenty more. But you steal an amber for the first one, and if there's one in your discard, which there will be after you played the first one, you steal 2. That's nice. We've then got Carlo Phantom, which steals an amber every time you play an artifact, which it's kind of borderline pointless because all you have here is 1 Spectral Tunneler. But Dodger, when you fight, you steal an amber, and Urchin, when you play it, you steal an amber, so plenty of amber control. We've then got a bit of cheeky damage, which Shadows has always been quite good at, which is your, well, I mean, I've already mentioned Nerve Blast. We've got Lights Out that returns 2 creatures to hand. It's not cheeky damage per se, but it does get creatures off the board, which is basically what you're trying to do with cheeky damage anyway. Just try not to put good creatures in your opponent's hand that have good coming into play abilities, or something like a Dust Pixie that will give them a double amber bonus. That would be very silly. And then Poison Wave deals 2 damage to each creature, though that is double-sided, that is yours and your opponent's, so do be a little bit careful with that. Oh yeah, and you've got a copy of Miasma. So you've got all this amber control, which is good, and stops your opponent forging keys, which it does, but then we've got Miasma, which gives you an amber bonus, and just makes your opponent skip their forge a key step on their next turn. Incidentally, you've got key abduction, which means if your opponent tries doing this to you, you can go ahead and forge a key anyway. But like all the best decks, really, you need all 3 suites to be phenomenal. I've already shown you that Mars and Shadows are great. Logos is great as well. It has a lot of what you would like. It's got library access. Now again, one thing that I find very interesting, both of the double Vault Tour winning decks have both library access and bait and switch, and they're both winning Vault Tours post errata. I do find that very interesting. It shows that yes, those cards were overpowered, but it doesn't mean that decks with them are now terrible. Library access purges when you play it, but then every other card you play this turn, you draw a card. That's pretty tasty. We've also got Wild Wormhole, which is a great, great combo with it, because you play it, draw a card, and then you play the top card of your deck and draw another card. Plus, house cheating is always good. But they're not the only phenomenal cards in the deck. We've got Interdimensional Grafts. If your opponent forges a key on their next turn, they must give you their remaining amber. Yeah, so against rushing decks, you just let them rush and let them get lots of amber. Then you play this, and yeah. They give you all their remaining amber, which can be enough to make you forge a key. And remember, one of the key points about this deck, you can cheat keys without amber using key abduction. So it's really great when you can use something like Interdimensional Graft to get a whole bunch of amber and forge a key that way. But another card that we've seen Jakob using a lot on stream is Reverse Time. Reverse Time gives you an amber bonus, and when you play it, you swap your deck and your discard pile and then shuffle your deck. Basically, you make sure that your discard pile is very small and full of cards you want, and then you play Reverse Time. So that very small discard pile full of good cards becomes a very small deck full of good cards, and then you're absolutely laughing. Now, I mentioned there isn't a lot of archiving, but there is a little bit. Lab Work just lets you archive a card. That's quite nice. And Ganymede Archivist, when you reap, you get to archive a card. It's not the most reliable archiving ever, but if you can ever archive Key Abduction and both Battlefleet, wait till you've got a few Mars cards in hand, take a Mars turn, and you're guaranteeing a good turn. It won't always work because it is a small amount of archiving, but it is a not insignificant amount of archiving, and sometimes it will work. And then you're going to have a phenomenal turn. The other archiving is Research Smoko, but when it's destroyed, you just archive the top card of your deck randomly, so it's rarely going to give you the desired result. And then we've even got a little bit of draw power outside of library access. Brain Eater, after a creature is destroyed fighting it, you draw a card. Quixo the Adventurer, 2 copies of this. When you fight, you draw a card, and because it's got Skirmish, if you start the fight, you will survive the fight. And then Doc Bookton, when you reap, you get to draw a card. So you've got a little bit of draw power in here as well, which is always a good thing. And finally, Spectral Tunneler we mentioned earlier, but we didn't actually tell you what it did. It is an artifact, and it's got an action. Choose a creature. For the remainder of the turn, it's considered a flank creature and gains reap. Draw a card. Oh, yes, a little bit more draw power. That's pretty tasty. The weird thing is, this deck and this player haven't just combined to win 2 Vault Tours, they also got top 4 in Poland, losing to that weird Grunt Buggy deck, which was phenomenal. Make no mistake about it, we now do have 2 players that have really come out and said, look, me and this deck, we are a force to be reckoned with. It's going to be very interesting to see if Jakob and the Pink Fraud keep doing this in the future. But I'd like to know what you think about this deck, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd like to know what you think about the fact that we've now had 2 players that have each won 2 Vault Tours with the same deck. Go nuts in the comment section, but please do remember the big rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about games like Keyforge and any others that take our fancy. And do please consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where we get bonus podcasts, and you can support the channel and life is good. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.